What's up,
Here.
everybody? Welcome back to The Juice. This is episode 2 for us. So I would say we sticking with our little New Year's resolution.
We're doing it. We're
of
doing
this,
things.
of showing up and doing it for the podcast.
Hey, and showing up is half the battle.
Absolutely.
Or all the battle.
Did you have any New Year's resolutions?
I don't do resolutions.
Yeah, I stopped doing them too because 20, 30 days later, a month later, I look around and see that, you know what, I have not dedicated a system to this goal that I have in mind. That's something I've been pondering on is goals versus systems, right? We can have a goal of being a millionaire. The systems is what is it going to take over the next however many years to get there. So for me,
Are you going to be a millionaire?
Listen, but that's not my goal.
Okay. I was like, if you better tell me.
Yeah, I would love some money, but for me, it has to do with my weight that goes up and down and up and down and up and down. So I heard something that says if you just try to make, because sometimes our goals are just too lofty, right? We are like, we want to do everything at the beginning of the year. We want to wake up earlier to the gym 4 times a week. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to be better at work. And we have all of these goals. But again, we fail to put those systems in place. But I heard something that says if you just improve by 1%, try to improve, pick something and try to improve that thing by 1% every single day. So let's just say people who may have some sort of substance misuse disorder, right? Again, I work in mental health. So these are the terms we try to talk about things honestly, but also actually define them. Just imagine somebody getting 1% worse every single day when it came to a substance misuse disorder, what that could look like over the course of a year, what that could look like for them over the course of 2 years. So that is my encouragement to you, not to be going off on a tangent, but as we talk about goals, I just wanted to say 1%, just focus on 1% every day. Just extra water. You may not get to 8 or 9 bottles of water a day. I drank a little bit more than I drank yesterday, and then start to implement those habits because we are a collection of our habits.
That's right.
Not necessarily our ambition, not our goal.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
God bless you.
And that's what I do. So I do that too. I don't make those. Sometimes I have the big goals. I'm like, I already know if I juice crazy. It's like, okay, I got to like, so I didn't go like straight out New Year's Day, like hitting the gym, whatever. No, I was like, all right, this week I'm going to focus on my water. Next week, I'm going to start walking. And it's like I get used to it. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do the small wins kind of stuff too.
So are you a person that usually is very calculated and detailed when it comes to planning?
How about we tell everybody who you are? This is Chantel Rose.
Y'all know who I am.
Host
I don't need no introduction in this. Y'all know me.
I
I don't need no introduction in this. But anyway,
and I'm
Chantel
Dr.
Rose.
Cindy Panier, and we are here downtown Fort Myers at Seed to Bean Market. It's a great place, great shop.
We're bringing you Juice Fresh Talk. Shout out to Juice. Rossini and I have had an interesting journey, but over the past year, this was our first time being actively involved in an election cycle together. And just to be so fully real and fully transparent, this was my very first time running for office and sitting with just the reality of not outperforming an opponent or several opponents. That can be tough. That can weigh on the spirit a little bit. So this is an hour of, I believe in that transparency. And so I invite people to ask us questions and to pick our brains and help us expand and help us to stretch as we present ourselves to you. I know Cindy has a wealth of knowledge. I said, Cindy, I can be the cool one, but you're the smart one. I think Cindy is pretty damn cool too, because being smart is cool. However,
that's what they always told me in school.
Yeah. They told you were cool because you were smart?
No, they never said that. I'm lying. No, I actually teach at the university here. Today was the first day of classes.
Okay.
And I'm telling my students, I'm like, you're trying to get them excited. Yeah, you're going to love it. We're going to learn about the government, the Constitution. It's really cool. I said, and I'm hilarious. So you should definitely come to class.
Right.
But I framed myself as, look, I fully understand. I'm a political dork. I'm a political nerd. I love it. I was taking notes, the Gulf War in 1992 as a kid, like watching CNN, taking notes because I was so interested. That
Right.
is how I've been. So I thrive
And your
on
students probably like, what in the hell is this? But your enthusiasm about government, I'm sure it has to spread to them in some form or fashion. They have to catch that flame, even if they aren't passionate about politics and government. But they should be. If they're taking your class, then they definitely are some poli
It's the
sci
general
major.
ed.
Oh,
It's
general
general
education.
education.
Yeah, and general ed can be a struggle because sometimes you're just trying to push through to get to your area of interest.
Right. And so I tell them, I'm like, look, I get it. You want to be a nurse or
Yeah.
a teacher or whatever. I was like, I understand. I want you to get the basics. I want you to understand. I want you to get excited
Absolutely.
about our community and the things is going on. So also, if you have a problem, I want you to know who to go to.
Absolutely.
I don't want you just out there blaming Joe Biden. Joe Biden didn't do it.
Yo,
He didn't do it.
that is so crazy because Diamond and what's the other? So there were
Diamond
two.
and Silk. Yep.
So I don't know them like that, but I knew what they stood for. So these were very hardcore Trump supporters, two Black women. And one of them, Diamond, just recently passed away.
Yep.
And when I tell you, so I'm all on the internet, I'm on the Shade Room, whatever platform, and I was so disgusted in the comments, right? And when people are asked to talk about why they dislike Trump, they can't tell you. They'll say words like, oh, racist, but they really can't tell you. And so, full circle, what you do is so very important because if we're going to not like somebody, we need to know why we do not like them. And that's one thing I can respect and appreciate you. You're not just throwing out blanket statements like, oh, they're this, they're an idiot, they're racist, they're this, blah, blah. You are actually breaking the stuff down, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Like, for instance, so I was explaining to my students, I said, now they have this requirement. They got to take my class and the civic literacy exam. It used to be and then 2 years ago they changed it, right? So my students' eyes glaze over. They're going, oh, really? I said, listen, I'm with you. I don't think you need to take this test. I said, but if you're mad about it, you know who you got to call? You got to call your state legislator. It was them and the state Senate and the state House here in Florida that decided to do that. So don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at the administration. Don't get mad at the mayor.
All right.
We're talking about
Definitely. You need
calling
to, and
your
don't
state
be mad at
senators.
don't be mad at your professor. So let's talk about legislation that has been passed that has been impacting professors here in the state of Florida. It's so interesting how that term woke was hijacked. We've been using stay woke in the Black community, and Cindy dabbles in the Black community quite a bit. Erykah Badu, she has a song, right? I stay woke. And basically, stay woke, queen, stay woke, brother, meaning stay on your P's and Q's, not necessarily about racial matters, but definitely pay attention to what is happening in your community, in your government. Basically, stay alert. Who can be mad at that? And we've seen this term hijacked and choked. And now your boy says Ron DeSantis. That's what,
boy. He's making he says Florida is where woke goes to die.
Where woke goes to die. And it's like, why would you want woke to die? Why you want people sleeping? What you trying to do?
Yeah, that's actually exactly what he wants. But I digress.
But over time, again, that is the beauty of exposure, education, and forcing yourself to get out there. But to your point about bringing ourselves together. So Cindy and I can even comfortably bump heads at this point. So of course we agree enough to have a friendship and have a genuine connection, but we also feel safe enough to push back. And that's where I was going with that. Drop it, maybe considering a lot of Black people are leaving the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, does that break your heart?
I want to see the data.
Look, you want to see the data on whether they are, or you want to know the reasoning, the heart and mind behind.
I know that there's a very small percentage of folks who are leaving the
Did
party.
that break your heart a little bit? You can be honest.
It did, because I'm just like, Republicans are not.
She doesn't want me to get. That's the thing. It's not even to jump to the Republican Party. It's the other. It's the other that seems so attractive because both Democrats and Republicans can be disappointing in very different ways. Yep. And I think there is this desire to detach from those two heavyweight norms that, seem to polarize our nation. And I think people are tired of this odds and ends. It's almost shapes who you are in a way.
But this is actually, in my opinion, why we actually need to understand how our systems work. and talk about this in class because I love this stuff. I've studied how our country has been moving further apart from each other for decades. This is not new, okay? It feels very raw because we have some really intense politicians right now, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis. These folks are intense, okay?
Right.
But we have been moving further apart from each other. So in fact, an author that I love, Robert Putnam, which is on Social Capital, okay? Capital is our relationships. We have bonding and bridging. Bonding makes us close. Bridging is like people that we know that aren't as close to us.
Okay.
And he's been researching, for instance, one of the things that determines wealth is how much bridging social capital you have. If you have the ability to know more than just your neighborhood, you have the better chance of social mobility. This is true. But what he has done is look over 100 years at how much we've been coordinated or collected with our community. Simply like how individual versus community we have been. What he found is that the United States right now is at the bottom of the trough. So we're as low on our community scale and basically as high on our individualistic scale as we have been in 100 years. But he did this like through evidence, like showing like how we were in clubs and stuff like that. So in the 60s is when it peaked. And it's interesting because he points out that even though we're at the bottom of this individualistic trough, we have the opportunity to rebuild in unique ways because now we can actually have less conformity, right? Because that's what the 60s were about.
But how do you build those communities with such an individualistic? Because again, living in Asia will teach you how much of an individual you have become or you are. But how, without that conformity, how do you build those groups, those connections?
So that's the second part of this. So we actually in the United States have physically built ourselves apart from each other. About it. We've had the rise going back early 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, suburban communities, cars, the highway and the cars. So now you don't even have to talk to anybody. You can go to your house, your McMansion on the cul-de-sac in your car, drive to your work, and then drive back to your house. You don't have to know anybody in your neighborhood. You don't have to talk to anybody at all. Isolated ourselves. Now you throw in things like the technology and the social media.
Definitely.
So now you have the urban centers, which there are lots more people. So that's why the Democrats are inclusive and bigger tent and different ideas and a bit messy. Whereas the rural areas are very Republican because it's more homogeneous, it's more white, it's more Christian, and they can be like that. And the way that the maps go, which is the other part about it, is so now that we've moved into these little enclaves, and every party, when they're in power, gerrymanders the maps, Democrats and Republicans alike. So what we have is when there are areas that are more Republican or more Democrat, they've gotten more Republican and more Democrat, not necessarily because people are moving into those areas, but because of the way that we draw the maps. That's exactly what happened here in the state of Florida. So they drew the maps, they did what's called crack and pack. So they pushed all the Democrats into a handful of districts, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, that's it. And so those districts are unbelievably easy for Democrats to win. They're like plus 35, plus 30, okay? And then they separated out the state. So they're all heavily Republican, but a little less. So like this district is a plus 13. Right? Matt Gaetz, his district is the most Republican. And that one is like plus 30, okay? So what that does is that means it gives the impression that we're separated when it's really just been a political trick based on these demographic trends that we've been having this whole time.
Yeah. And listen at me coming to my own conclusions. And I've only voted in four presidential elections. My first time being legally able to vote, I voted for President Barack Obama. So that just shows you the depth that I do not have when it comes to understanding things over time. So let me back y'all up a little bit.
Yeah, back it up. I'm
gonna tell you this is why I love you right here. As I entered into my race for Fort Myers City Council for Ward 3, I sat and had a conversation with Cindy, and I said, there's this practice going on where people are going in and they're going door to door and saying, hey, just let me get your ballot and I'm gonna do the right thing with it. I'm gonna go ahead and vote for whoever, because people outside of the president, let's be honest, president and governor, maybe your mayor, people really don't know the ins and outs of who all is on their ballot, who's running for agriculture, who is running for district attorney, who's the judges. Blew my mind on the ballot. I'm like, what the hell is all this?
It's tough.
Damn, what if I'm clicking the wrong thing? Or you just leave it blank, right? So I'm describing this practice to her, and she says, oh yeah, that's called ballot harvesting. I'm like, wow, it has
And it's illegal.
It's illegal, right? And I said, this is what's been going on in Ward 3, in Ward 2, in Ward 1, in the whole world, in the United States, especially in Black and brown community, because you see this disconnect oftentimes in Black communities. And so they'll say, for instance, they'll say crime is higher in poorer communities, right? So election crime is no different, right? So she described for me ballot harvesting. I researched ballot harvesting. I found out how illegal it was, but I found out Republicans in particular in the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis made it a third-degree felony, those who were participating in ballot harvesting. I'm like, wow. So it's not just frowned upon, it's actually illegal. I didn't even know what the term was called. So of course, for people who are disconnected, they don't know that they're participating in something or they're aiding in something. So I jumped on this ballot harvesting thing. And guess what? Republicans,
it's the Republican thing. They love
that. They love
election integrity.
So this guy that I actually respect a lot, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Chantel, I heard about you on fake news." And he called one of our local news stations. I'm like, okay, I got to be fake news. But anyway, he said, "I heard about your election integrity story, and I want to invite you to speak." And he spent so much time over the next few weeks and months prepping me for what he felt that I would be very uncomfortable in that setting. And naturally, look at me, I'm Black as hell, I'm swaggy and Black and got dreads, and I led the Black Power movement, Black Lives Matter movement. So of course he felt he had to do a lot of prepping, but in my heart, I was so excited at the opportunity to speak to a group of hardcore MAGA stumping Trump supporters, make America great again. But I spoke on the very specific topic of election integrity. To my surprise, I did have a lot of people from the Democratic Party who just didn't want to touch that issue. They respected me as an individual. But again, as Cindy mentioned, looking at the bigger picture and what that does overall to the party. Are you feeding into a narrative about your party or the party that you support or that you believe is ultimately for the greater good? Are you feeding into negative stereotype that could be damaging? And so I had this conflict. I did have a little bit of conflict where you think about the greater good, but then you think about how do we get to a greater good when we overstep these little goods called a community, called a ward, called a specific environment where there's no oversight. People are running rampant doing this particular election crime and they're not being held accountable, not being checked by government. But the saddest part is that people within the community did not know that it was a crime. They didn't know it was wrong. Oh, you know what you're doing. You held a position in power. I'm going to hand over my ballot to you. So I was excited at the opportunity to speak, but I did have that little moment where I'm like, and I quickly said, you know what, screw it. One life to live. I want to see what it feels like. And when I tell you, people were discouraging me. They was like, no, because you're going to come back maggot out and they're going to get you and you're going to turn and this and the third. And I'm like, oh, ye of little faith. That's how I felt. I'm like, do you not see that with each move you make, that is an opportunity to plant a seed, right? That's an opportunity. And you don't know where the hell that seed is going to go. You don't know if it's going to get a chance to flourish and grow. However, if you don't plant the seed, you can guarantee you're not getting a harvest, getting a crop.
It's not a Democrat, it's not a Republican. And actually, people who are the pundits and the political people, they forget that the regular folks don't always know the lines, right? And it's, oh, I like them, or that thing that was important to me, they said. Like all these other things everybody doesn't necessarily know. Right. Wonky people, and it's like, what do they say? It's maybe 20%. So it's 10% hyper Republicans and 10% hyper Democrats, and they know all the things and they're getting all worked up.
Right.
But 80% in the middle, everybody's just trying to live their life.
They just trying to be some regular people. And that's what I love about the book. It just talks about how we have been led to believe that we are more perhaps polarized than you think, but there are so many people in the frustrated center. That's what the book refers to it as, this frustrated center that feels, damn, I feel a little bit of this and I feel a little bit of that. I don't want to gang up and go so hard for a particular party that I can't speak open and honestly about
Right.
issues.
And that's the purity test and stuff. But that also comes back to gerrymandering too, because when things are gerrymandered, then you get really polarized folks that are come in, and then they can lead the dialogue.
It is a sacrifice, but I do it for the ones that I love. I do it for the sake of opening doors and opening our portals to information, because like I said, going back to, what's the people name, the lady that died, Diamond?
Diamond, I think her name was Lynette Howland.
I don't know, but I know they were shucking and jiving all over the place for Donald J. Trump, and they seem
were
to
making
be
money, too.
Yeah, they seem to be passionate about it. But the comments were just like, "Damn, yo, y'all really feel like you gonna tell this lady to rest in peace just because she passed away, but she was a Trump supporter, a Black Trump supporter." But my problem again, feel how you feel, but when you're asked to explain it, and your explanation is as deep as a goddamn teaspoon, I find issue with that. I don't like that. And I want us to know why we don't like what we don't like. I want us to be informed people. And when we
100%.
step, we got to step boldly.
Yeah, and I agree. And so that's why I'm all over social media and stuff. So I found that too. And I'm like, I was looking up what everybody was saying. I'm like, whoa, everybody's feeling some way about this.
Yeah.
What I found for me, I really try to stay. I may have some carefully placed words every now and then, but I really don't participate in ad hominem attacks or body shaming or this kind of this negative stuff. Yeah, she was a lady. And here's the other thing. I never
They
really
were body
watched
shaming her too. I'm sure they were.
Oh, I mean, that's what they do to me every time somebody.
Yeah, you said that.
Oh my God, you should. There's a whole thing you should see right now what people are saying about me today. But anyway, yeah, just because like when you say something, that's what people go to. But I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Again, because if I can read you on why I don't like you, I don't have to pull in these other things like your weight or your height or your
or it's like you're a slut or a man. I'm a trans man.
Yeah,
that's like you're fat, you're a slut, you're a dude.
Or you can tell me why you have an issue with the things that I said. You can provide research, you can provide thoughtful dialogue and pushback. But we reach for these blanket word, and it's like sheep mentality. Like we're just going along with what we feel we're supposed to go along with, and we're riding for the cause. And I think that destroys us as a people.
Yeah, so I try not to participate in that. But one thing I did say is that, and I don't know the whole story, but it was reported that she had COVID and had been hospitalized for a long time.
Oh.
And so my response was, I'm really sorry to hear of her passing. I hope her family and loved ones are whatever, condolences kind of thing. I said, but this is a good reminder that the Black community has paid the highest price for misinformation around COVID.
And that I can respect, because it was directly tied. If she did indeed pass away from COVID, and the Trump administration spent a great deal of time denying COVID, downplaying COVID, making sure they pissed it off at people for wearing masks, that's a direct correlation. I can see that.
Yeah.
And then when you brought it back to the larger picture of, if the Black community, if white America has a cold, Black America has pneumonia. We have it worse because we're already
less
fragile.
healthy. We live in a dirtier environment.
Absolutely. We are known to
racial bias in medicine. Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
Because there's lots more. There's 100 reasons why all these
we're
things.
Fragile.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. And so that brings it back to a larger conversation. And it's not these little simple as, you hurt me or you seem to be against me. But we're learning today. I'm learning. And thank you so much, Dr. Cindy Banya, just for being you, the smartest person ever.
No, I
respect you, for real.
I respect you too. I think that's why we're friends. And we talk about it. And that's it. Like, you can talk, we can disagree, and we can say, hey, how's this? And we can look at different angles. And here's the other thing. And I think that what I hope that we can also cultivate, because this is what I try to cultivate with my students too, is sometimes we have to have the space to be wrong too. Maybe we say something, we talk about it, and we may make mistakes.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about it.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because think about it. Like, we don't give ourselves the grace to be wrong and to allow others to be wrong. Merriam-Webster, she has this book called Return to Love, A Course in Miracles, right? And she talks about how that word grace is what allows people to come back when they have misspoken, or when even politically, say for instance, because they talked about Obama and how initially he was against, and we're going to wrap it up soon, but Obama, he was initially against gay marriage, but over time his views changed, not whether they changed because of whatever power or his heart changed. nevertheless, even politically, we have to hold space for the fact that we may not always feel how we feel. There's a such thing as growth and transformation and a different perspective based on your lived experiences. And I think when we hold people to these disgusting remarks without reading the facts surrounding their position, it locks us out of that grace that we need to come back and recover and say, I've thought about it, or I've matured, I've grown, I've learned more on the information on the subject, more information on the subjects. But anyway, that's the juice for today.
That's the juice. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And we will see you next week. So stay tuned to Big Mouth Media. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, our website, www.bigmouthmediafl.com. And if we're looking at changing times, you'll see it there. But if you want to see us, how cute we look in this lights and this beautiful seed and bean, you're going to have to subscribe. So on Big Mouth Media, we have special for a short time because we're a startup right now. $50 gets you grandfathered in access to all of the content from Big Mouth Media.
Yeah.
So that includes Dr. Cindy Speaks. That includes Rebecca Jones, Misinformation, as well as all of the other podcasts we have coming on. We have the videos, we have special interviews, full-length content is on the website. So
go ahead and get those purses out because we need you to invest. All right. This is something great. This is something good. So go ahead, subscribe, hit like, hit subscribe so that you can get notifications and hear about when we're coming out with new content. But we love you all and we make these sacrifices for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
The juice.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.